Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it's one of my favorite times of year. It's college football magazine season. It's one of those things that's like, in some ways, it's kind of like an artifact of the past pre-internet days, but also it's still one of my absolute favorite times of year because it means college football is right around the corner. And every year I run out and I buy all of the magazines again. But it's wonderful. It's absolutely, truly wonderful. How are you, Tony? Are you also celebrating magazine season with me?
I am. In fact, I received my copy of the Phil Steele magazine on Tuesday. I sent away for it. It's like back in the olden days, you clip out the coupon and you send away for stuff.
Tony got his X-ray specs, his Little Orphan Annie decoder ring, and his Phil Steele magazine this week. It's been a big week in the Gerdeman household.
And also, like, I'm no longer going to get sand kicked in my face at the beach. I'm going to lift weights. Yeah, I love this time of year. And you say it's an artifact of the past. I guess this is how old people feel about newspapers. I don't know. Like, I just like to feel in my hands. But because you can get the Phil Steele digital edition, and I have in the past, but I've used it. Like, I only use it until I get the actual hard copy. And then once you get the hard copy, like, I don't, I never look at it again. But yeah, I'm a creature of habit with the magazines. And that's a lot of what this show is going to be about: college football magazines, college football this season, some stuff that I've seen in the magazines that I kind of disagree with or very much disagree with. And Tom will tell me if I'm wrong or not. But my thing every year is the Athlon National magazine is usually the first one out. So I buy that. And then a few weeks to a month later, Phil Steele comes out and I'll have that. I usually pre-order that and pay like $8 for shipping. Although kind of annoyed that the Football Writers Association, which provides free shipping every year, sent out their email on Tuesday saying, hey, use this code for free shipping. And I'm like, could have used that 2 weeks ago, save me $8. I almost wanted to respond to the email saying, does that mean my dues will be reduced by $8 since you people have cost me this? To which they would probably say no.
Sports writers procrastinating? Why I never. Impossible.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then after I get to Phil Steele, I think in a week or so, the Lindy's Big Ten magazine will come out, and I'll get that. Back in the day, Phil Steele used to do the conference magazines as well, and I would always get his Big Ten magazine, and then they stopped doing that. But yeah, it's always a big thing. I just like having them. I don't like Athlon and Lindy's are fine. They're more reading material for me. Like Phil Steele is research. I use it almost every day when I'm working, to look something up, look up stars, look up, class or something like that. It's basically, I don't read any of the articles in it. It's just my emotional support magazine. Like I've always got it to my left here on my desk. And as long as I've got it, then I can get through the day, and something comes up, I can just, fold through this. What I always used to use it for also, Tom, is editing NCAA football rosters. Mm-hmm. And editing the entire like Big Ten, and then check off how many guys I've got in there, and just an incredible resource. And soon we'll get to use that again as a resource for NCAA football. So that is my I've got 2 magazines so far. I know you are you still waiting to go and get your setup?
I am. I actually didn't see the email from the Football Writers Association that there was a free shipping code, so I may end up doing that now. I have always done it as like go to Barnes and Noble and go pick it up, which is just, again, creature of habit thing, because Phil Steele is part of my off season. Steelmas is a very real holiday in my household. So yeah, I will either go pick it up at a Barnes and Noble when it's on sale there, or go pick it up, just go do the shipping thing now that there's free shipping. But yeah, last year was the first time my son was old enough to like really be interested in it and like start going through it. And I'm getting questions like, Dad, what does VHT mean? Like that's
it's very high talent, son.
Very highly touted. That was the that's the answer. Yeah, that's the it is. There is so much in there. And talking to Phil on the morning scoop, I typically have him on a couple times a year, just when we're heading into playoffs or heading into the season. You talk to him and it's amazing. The stuff that you think like, oh, hey, there's this one error in here, or I disagree with his ranking here. And it's like, you start talking to him and it's just like off the top of his head, just like rattles off. Just what team do you want to know about? Like, a lot of times on those shows, I'll kind of like prep the guests, like, hey, I'm going to ask you this, just so you can sort of have answers ready. On that, it's just like, he's like, I'm like, do you want to know what we're talking? No, just go ahead. And it's just like, all right, Coastal Carolina, who's their third tight end? Boom. Like, he knows their third tight end, no problem. And he talks to all the coaches. And Brett Ciancia from Pick Six Previews is the same thing. He does a digital only one. Same thing. Like, he focuses just on the Power Five, but like, man, you want to know about like what happened in Kansas's spring game. Brett Ciancia can tell you. It is remarkable the amount of work that goes into those things. And I just respect the heck out of those guys, because they know so much about everything that, that's, you want to know why I consider those a resource, because how much work goes in and how much institutional knowledge there is to really put something like that together. Like, yep, that's yes, sometimes stuff is outdated. Yes, sometimes magazines are a little speculative. I saw JT Tuamaloa had already committed according to one of the magazines. That was interesting. But yeah, it's just, there's such a wealth of knowledge that I cannot fathom a year when I don't rush out and buy them as soon as they're available.
It's I felt bad for everybody last year trying to put magazines together based on what was going on and the opt-outs, and not just by the players, but also by the conferences and the teams. And now it's even more difficult now with the portal. And yes, like, you could have a starting tight end on the depth chart, and then you go to print and it's like, oh, he just transferred. And you're like, oh, and that's just part of it. But they all understand it. I have gotten annoyed though, through no fault of my own. And I've tweeted out this like last year and the year before, like, if these magazines would just come to me and ask me more about the Ohio State depth chart, I could help them all out, because the depth charts that they put out are questionable. I do wonder, like, literally, I question who gave them the depth charts. Now, I don't take a huge issue with this, but it's like, for Phil Steele, he has Travion Henderson as Ohio State's starting running back. We've already talked about it. That could very well be the case. And a lot of what he does is how things will end up rather than how they will start out. So I'm not going to get upset about that one. He does have Emeka Egbuka starting in the slot over Jackson Smith and Jigba, and we know that's just not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And so it's like, if Phil just would have asked you, asked me, asked anybody, and I do wonder, I know he loves the PS numbers and the recruiting rankings, and there's a lot of reason to love Egbuka. But the year before, Jackson Smith and Jigba was Egbuka. So, like, there are some highly ranked guys there as well. Harry Miller, he has at right guard. Matthew Jones at center. Yeah. Zach Harrison, he has starting, of course. Jack Sawyer, he has starting, which that's not going to happen. It's going to be Tyreek Smith and Zach Harrison. I think we would agree with that. Kayvon Pope is starting in every magazine that I've seen so far at the SAM. I don't think that's likely. I think we both expect Craig Young. And then, he's got Seven Banks and Cameron Brown, Lathan Ransom, Josh Proctor. I'm okay with that. But so that's Phil. I like the way he will take a gamble on some top freshmen, because other people are, let's go with the incumbent or the guy who is a veteran. So I do appreciate that, Tom. I just wish, I'm not saying I should be more involved, but they could ask.
I'm not saying I should be more involved, but if I was saying it, this is a lot like what this rant would sound like. Yeah, and that's the challenge with these, I think, is you're trying to do this for 65 in Brett's case or 130 in Phil's case teams where yes, a fan of an individual team or a beat writer for an individual team will know that team better than you can possibly know that when it's 165th or 130th of your responsibility. But the level of nitpick you're getting down to there, is pretty, it's not like he has, Elijah Gardner as a starting wide receiver. It's like, well, here's a guy who's probably also going to be in the rotation at the slot. And, which one of them is going to run out on the field first? Yes, it's probably going to be Jackson Smith-Njigba. But, if you go based off of the spring game, Emeka Egbuka put on a pretty darn good show. So, it's not completely crazy to project it. I'm with you, though. I don't expect him to. I don't expect Travion Henderson to be a starting running back for the first game of the season. But as we've talked about, it's possible later in the year. It's possible that Jack Sawyer jumps Tyreek Smith this year. I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility. It's certainly not going to happen for game one, but by November, is it crazy to think he could be starting opposite Zach Harrison? Not crazy. I don't think that's crazy at all. So yeah, there's certainly stuff you can nitpick, but on the whole, I always find those fascinating. I love the past results where it's like you look at the point spreads and you could find these crazy trends. And Phil, I have not seen Phil's, but I assume Phil once again has the turnovers equal turnaround thing. Mm-hmm. Yes, one of my favorite annual features. That if you were way, way, way in the plus or way, way, way in the minus on turnovers last year, odds are you're gonna kind of regress to the mean. That's not a thing that has typically proven out to be a repeatable thing. You're not plus 12 in turnovers every single year. So if you were plus 12 in turnovers last year, odds are that's going to regress, and you're not going to have as much turnover luck this year. Yeah, that's one of my favorite annual features. But yeah, you just go through and just start reading and just read pick any page you want, like Southern Miss, Louisiana Tech. Yep, there's an absolute ton of work that went into this. He was on the phone with someone in those football offices for an hour to talk about these teams. They put this page together that most people aren't going to read, but if you do, it's pretty much all there.
I know it's for people who think, man, I'd like to write a college football magazine, write about Ohio State. It's like, well, okay. Ohio State is just one part of it. You also have to write about Buffalo and Iowa State and Arizona and Washington State. And it gets a lot muddier once you start thinking about all of that. And, I complete credit because he's he'll tweet out, Phil will tweet out, thanks for just got off the phone for an hour with the Buffalo coach or the Akron coach. And the amount of time that it's a year round thing that now he's probably going to take a little bit of time off, but then it begins again. Looking at the athlon that I have here, Tom, they have Jameson Williams starting for the Buckeyes. I mean, he doesn't even play for them. But again, we also knew that he wasn't going to be starting, even if he was here.
Yeah, he came out of spring very likely not going to be starting this fall. He's very obviously not going to be starting this fall since he's now a member of the Alabama football team and not the Ohio State football team. But this is the price of print and all of the all the wonderful things Tony said earlier about how nice it is to hold it in your hands, and I do really genuinely appreciate that. I miss the media guide you could hold in your hand and just flip through rather than trying to scroll through a 280 page PDF. I prefer that. If anyone from the SID office is listening, wouldn't mind a printed out copy of the media guide this year. I don't think that's an option anymore. It feels like that has not been presented as an option.
We'll get you a thumb drive.
Thanks. You can hold that.
Although Tom, the first Big Ten media game Big Ten media days I ever went to was 2006. When you did get the media guides, and they would give you a canvas bag to carry them in, and at that time it was 11. It would have been 11 media guides. This stuff gets heavy to just lug around. It's like 40 pounds. These are like 3-pound books each. It's a lot, and then just carry it around. But I do keep my Phil Steele in my computer bag when I'm going to games or on the road, just because it's just a resource. I am glad that now the media gift at Big Ten Media Days is no longer scoliosis. That's positive with the digital media guides. But yeah, I do enjoy just having that and just being able to flip through it. I don't know what it is. Maybe this is me being an old person. I have no such nostalgia for newspapers. I'm fine with that. But just being able to zip through a book is so much nicer to me than just having to scroll through a PDF. And as we've been talking about these receivers and Jackson Smith-Njigba and Emeka Egbuka, I think maybe Phil Steele has talked me into it because, as you said, he had a huge spring game. Egbuka did. Last year, Jackson Smith-Njigba, 10 catches, 49 yards. Big whoop.
I think the editorial position of this podcast on Jackson Smith-Njigba has been made clear over the last 18 months or so. So as always, the lesson is don't listen to Tony. It's fine. Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to be very good this year. He's going to be the starter this year. I think we have projected, if a lot of the balls weren't going to go to Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, we would probably be both projecting really irresponsible numbers for Jackson Smith-Njigba. Instead, we're just going to project probably 5 times what he did last year and then continued growth the year after that. But yeah, he's someone who I think that the closer you are to the program, the closer you follow the program, the more you see of the program outside of Saturday games, the higher you are on Jackson Smith-Njigba and what he might do this year.
Well, you brought it up, so let's talk about it. If there is no Chris Olave, let's just project to next year then. Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson are gone. Jackson Smith-Njigba is in the slot. Whoever else is on the outside, be it Julian Fleming, Marvin Harrison, and Emeka Egbuka, but Jackson Smith-Njigba is your number one slot. Immediately, my mind goes to 80 catches.
KJ Hill numbers. Yeah.
And I think 80 catches, 1,100 yards, something like that. 12, 13, 14 touchdowns. This year, I think he'll be in the 40s. Could maybe, KJ Hill had, I think, 57 the same year, or no, he had like 70 the same year that Paris Campbell had 90, but they had to throw the ball every time because they couldn't run it. I don't know if we've done an over-under on Jackson Smith-Njigba yet. I know the average, I keep saying the average starting slot at Ohio State since 2012 catches 57 passes. I feel like I'm going to have to be under that this year, but he's certainly capable.
Yeah, probably under. I mean, I think just round numbers, I think 50 catches, 600 yards, 650, maybe 700 yards, 7 touchdowns, something like that. That sounds about right to me because you're going to be rotating. You're going to be leaning on, you have a lot of running backs you got to keep feeding the ball to. They're going to be up in a bunch of games. The offensive line should be pretty good this year. You've got young quarterbacks. You're not going to, if it's close-ish, you're probably not going to want to put everything on the quarterbacks right away. I expect probably fewer receptions for Jackson Smith-Njigba this year with not only Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, but also Jeremy Ruckert there. I mean, you've got a bunch of really proven guys in contract years potentially who are going to be ready to play, have shown that they are more than talented receivers. So I think you're going to be probably in that like 50 catch, 650, 700 range, something like that. And, 8 touchdowns. And that's not going to look super impressive compared to some of the stat lines that other people have put up. And it's like, just wait, friends, just wait. It's coming. Just wait. For a sophomore to do that as a starter in a talented wide receiver room, it's loaded the way that it is right now. Like that's actually a really impressive season.
It would remind me of like Denzel Ward starting with Marshawn Lattimore and Garyon Conley. Like why is Ward in there as a true sophomore? And it's like, well, because he's really, really good, and he eventually showed that. I'm looking through. And just some other notable things. Actually, one last thing from Lindy's. Okay, here's another nitpick. This is an ultimate nitpick. Starting strong safety, Josh Proctor. Starting free safety, Marcus Williamson. The backup strong safety to Proctor, Court Williams. The backup free safety to Lathan Ransom, or to Marcus Williamson as Lathan Ransom. Total nitpick on this. Josh Proctor is the free safety. Marcus Williamson and Lathan Ransom would be the strong safety. This is just me being bitter, and it'd just be an easy fix. Like Athlon, just ask. Just you can have somebody do it. Just have some. I'll be QC. That's it.
You don't even need to pay me. Just change it to Tony's College Football Preview on the cover, and that's it. You don't. I don't even need any money. No, I think that's exactly. I can't imagine why they haven't taken you up on that offer yet.
Because they're jealous.
Well, obviously.
Because need to be said.
The usual answer, because of the haters, obviously.
It is true. So some of the other stuff from this, and one of the things I like from Phil's magazine is that surprise teams each year. Now, this might be some bad news for Michigan, because his number 1 surprise team is Washington. His number 2 surprise team is Wisconsin. Michigan plays those two teams within like the first 5 games of the season. Michigan, by the way, he has finishing 4th in the Big Ten. And we've gone over this before, but Michigan starts with Western Michigan. They host Washington, host Northern Illinois, host Rutgers, and go to Wisconsin. And in that first 5 games, playing 2 of the surprise teams in the nation. If Michigan starts out 5-0, then I would have to move the Wolverines to the number 1 surprise team in the nation. Just it's a rough start, and I was interested to see that. What do you think? Washington and Wisconsin?
That's interesting. I mean, I think Wisconsin for sure. Washington, I haven't done a real deep dive on Washington football yet, but this is year 2 for Jimmy Lake, which is typically the year that a program takes that next step, after with a transition. This is less of a transition because it was an internal hire after Chris Peterson retired, but still he brought in a new offensive coordinator, Bush Hamdan, who was the guy who was there during the Rose Bowl. He's not there anymore. So you've got a little bit of a staff turnover last year. So and it was a wonky year anyway. So, and remember, Washington won the Pac-12 North. They didn't get to play in the conference championship game, but they won the Pac-12 North last year. So you would think that that's probably, I think the next step for Washington is not an unreasonable expectation, which is, top 10, top 15-ish team. That's not crazy by any means. So yeah. And if you've got that, Wisconsin, I think we've talked about on the show before, I'm pretty high on Wisconsin this year, that as a, they now have the quarterback that I think they've been waiting on for a long time. So now they might be, the good Wisconsin instead of just the usual Wisconsin or the bad Wisconsin. The good Wisconsin is pretty darn good. Those could be 2 teams that finish 10-2, 11-1 for Michigan to start with in their first 5 games. Michigan, I am not projecting to finish 10-2 or 11-1 this year. So, if you're 3-2 after those 5, that's not great. And and then you have a bunch of banana peels on the back half of that schedule, because the Big Ten East is, we talked about this on Tuesday's show, the Big Ten East is a lot deeper than it has been in the past, with Indiana and Penn State and Ohio State all being, probably pretty decent versions of themselves. Michigan State, second year with Mel Tucker, Rutgers and Maryland maybe having a pulse now. Like, all of a sudden there's not really a gimme on that East side anymore, and at least when you're a team of Michigan's caliber. So, if you're 3-2 and then you have all of that ahead of you, you have that whole Big Ten East slate ahead of you, like that could go pear-shaped pretty quickly.
So I shared some of this stuff on the board, and the thing that I think has struck me most and struck the posters the most was the quarterback situation, both individually and among the teams. Now, I do my own Big Ten position rankings. I ended up having Indiana number 1 in the East, Ohio State number 2. And I just felt like Michael Penix has shown what he can do. Ohio State quarterbacks have not. So you give the benefit of the doubt to the guy who has done it. There are, Phil Steele does 4 all Big Ten teams. There is not an Ohio State quarterback among the 4. Tom, can you give me the 4 quarterbacks that you think would be the 4 guys listed? And you don't have to do it in any order, but I'm sure there's like 3 easy ones, and then you're going to have to probably work for a 4th one. You might need something. You might need like actual team names in front of you. I don't know.
So the 4 quarterbacks who are going to be all Big Ten who are not Ohio State quarterbacks.
Yes.
I'm going to go with Graham Mertz. I think that's an easy one, probably.
3rd team.
3rd team. Okay. I think you might have Sean Clifford might have enough seniority that he's there, even if he's not necessarily. No.
Nope.
Oh, well, Michael Penix.
Yes,
because he's assuming Michael Penix will stay healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of seniority, Tanner Morgan. I'm going to go Tanner Morgan.
Team.
2nd team. Yeah. Okay. Are you going to tell me Adrian Martinez? Is that what you're going to tell me?
I'm not.
Okay. Okay.
Same division.
Not at Iowa. Okay. Yeah. I'm skimming through that division. So we've already covered Wisconsin. We've covered Minnesota. I don't know which quarterback to pick at Purdue. So I'm not, and it can't be, it's not Brandon Peters. So
which quarterback at Purdue is it? The fact that you have to pick the right one.
That's the question. Yeah. Because the argument for not picking Ohio State is, well, you have to pick one of them. The argument for picking Purdue is, well, you have to pick one of them, and they're not as good as the guys at Ohio State. So yes, that I think would be a difficult thing to justify intellectually, but Yeah, I don't know. Drew Brees. I don't know.
Billy
He's
Dickon.
pretty good. Okay, yes, Billy Dickon. Yes,
Jack Plummer is the number 4, the 4th-team quarterback for Phil Steele. And I know he divvies some of the workout, like the draft eligible, the player rankings. He gives that to somebody else to do, because there is some questionable stuff going on here. There is that. You marry that, and we're not even going to get to the most egregious part yet. So then there's the national quarterback rankings, of which Ohio State ranks 31st. Kent State ranks 14th. And now I went and looked. Kent State, their quarterback, Dustin Crum, he's like Dan Lefevre-ish, so that's okay. That's pretty good. But Tom, they say there's 500 million inhabitable planets in the Milky Way.
Do they say that?
Science has said that. Do you think on any of those planets there is somebody who would take Kent State's quarterbacks over Ohio State's quarterbacks?
I would respectfully suggest that probably that is not true. This is my guess is this is some sort of a methodology issue where it has to do with returning production or statistics, like a sort of hard-coded statistical thing where Ohio State has 0 returning pass attempts, so therefore they can't be good. But yes, I think if you probably asked Phil, you would probably get the answer that yes, Ohio State has more talent in their quarterback room right now, but the question is, who is this going to be? And, how are they going to perform this year? But yes, I think if you, in an honest moment, if you asked Kent State's head coach, Sean Lewis, would you trade your quarterback room for Ohio State's quarterback room? I suspect he would accept that deal.
Well, you drive a hard bargain. Let's do it. The Michigan is number 54 on that list. Indiana, number 18, ahead of Ohio State. Number 20, Wisconsin, ahead of Ohio State. Number 22, Coastal Carolina, ahead of Ohio State. Number 29, Purdue, ahead of Ohio State. And Tom, number 30, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Now, Adrian Martinez, 2,000-yard passer, could be a 1,000-yard rusher. There's certainly, okay, that's fine. But we know Phil likes projection. He's got Travion Henderson starting. He's got Jack Sawyer starting. It's just, I think you mentioned like the methodologies and maybe like, well, on this thing, I use these data points. Depth chart, I use like what I think, what I'm told from coaches, what I've heard. And it's more of a intangible rather than maybe more the positional rankings are more tangible in terms of the data. So maybe that's what it is. But then you go to his Heisman candidates, and he has C.J. Stroud 7th. So, Tom, how?
I assume Billy Dickon is 3rd. Is that right?
No, in fact, let's see. His Heisman candidate favorites for 2021. Number 1, Spencer Rattler.
That's yes.
Number 2, Sam Howell.
Okay.
Number 3, Matt Corral out of Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, Keaton Slovis. Now, the good thing is these are all quarterbacks, so he's correct so far.
I have questions about Matt Corral being 3rd, but
yeah, that's. I mean, he could have some interesting numbers, but he's also going to have 4 or 5 losses.
Mm-hmm.
Keaton Slovis, number 4 out of USC.
See also previous conversation. Yes, go on.
DJ Uiagalelei, who very well could be in there. Number 6, Bryce Young at Alabama. Number 7, CJ Stroud. Number 8, Derek King out of Miami. Number 9, I just saw this one. Number 9, Emory Jones at Florida. And number 10, Michael Penix.
There are, I'm going to say 5 to 6 names on that list that I think, yes, will be in the top 10 when you get to the end of the season, or very well could be. Emory Jones at Florida is spicy. That's, I mean, I guess it's a system thing, maybe.
I would have JT Daniels ahead of Emory Jones.
I would have JT Daniels as well, because I think Georgia's can be a better team than Florida, and yeah, I think that's I would agree with you there.
I'd I might have Bijan Robinson in the top 10 as well. I think he's just going to continue where he kind of left off. He has in terms of his contenders, which is the next group of 16, he has Travion Henderson in there. Brock Purdy at Iowa State, maybe a little underrated if he can do something. Malik Willis, the quarterback at Liberty, everybody seems to love to talk about, but everybody also is like, yeah, possibilities, the lower section, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. I'm not seeing much Michigan stuff here, Tom.
Are you looking at a good list or a bad list? Because I think I may have the answer there. Yeah, I'm not sure Alan Bowman belongs on that list as of potential Heisman contenders this year. No disrespect to Alan Bowman or the Michigan program, but yeah, that's. I think realistically the way the Heisman is voted, it's which quarterback on a top 5 team is going to win the Heisman this year. So I think your choices are Spencer Rattler, JT Daniels, Duce Uiagalelei, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. If you give me those 5, I will give you the field. That is how the Heisman works. The editorial position of this podcast on the Heisman has also been made clear over the years. I mean, who else would you put on that list? Like if I take those 5 and I'm like, you can take 20 more people, who are you taking other than those 5?
Yeah, I'm, maybe somebody who goes off crazy for 2,000 yards. But even then,
Brock Purdy is not a crazy answer, because if Brock Purdy leads Iowa State over,
or something.
If Brock Purdy leads Iowa State, I mean, Bijan Robinson is probably on that list for me. Mm-hmm. If Brock Purdy leads Iowa State over, Oklahoma, they win the Big 12, they make the college football playoff, that becomes like the biggest story of the season. So much of the Heisman is narrative driven that, that becomes Matt Campbell's the greatest coach since Knute Rockne, and Brock Purdy is the greatest quarterback in the history of the world. So you may be there, but there's so many other ways that it's just like, well, guess what? Oklahoma had a really good offense again. And this year their defense is better, which has absolutely no bearing on their quarterback, and yet it will. So therefore it's Spencer. I mean, that's just kind of how this typically plays out. So I think I would tend to bet on one of those 5 guys and give you the field and take my chances.
Did you have JT Daniels in there?
I did. Yes. I went through here's the 5 teams that are most likely to make the college football playoff. And, outside of them, like who else is a real threat? I mean, who's going to make it does Texas A&M have a guy who's going to be the guy this year? Like it would have been, if it was last year, it would have been Kellen Mond for Texas A&M, but Kellen Mond is gone now. So, do they have a guy who's going to be that kind of player for them this year on offense? Because maybe that's their team. Like, I mean, pick a guy or 2 off Texas A&M, but yeah, to me, I think that's probably about it.
But even if you go Brock Purdy, if Iowa State has this crazy season, Breece Hall is going to be part of that as well.
Right.
The running back. So he's going to be stealing some of that shine.
But he's not a quarterback, so he's not eligible for the Heisman, sir.
That was my fault for saying that. You are correct, Tom.
And you want to write my college football magazine. You don't even know who's eligible for the Heisman. Come on.
Oh, so Ohio State, the number 31 group of quarterbacks nationally. Where do you think, Tom, the Ohio State linebackers rank in his positional rankings nationally?
Well, this is either going to be like 7th or 87th. And I mean, there's no returning starts, so I guess, but they're all highly rated. So, I'm going to say 87th, but I think as I'm saying that, I'm sure the answer is going to be shockingly high, because otherwise you wouldn't be asking me.
Well, yeah, the only reason I'm asking you is because they actually finished one spot ahead of the quarterbacks. They finished it. They are ranked 30th, which I don't know that I would. By the end of the season, I fully expect the quarterbacks to be ranked higher than any type of linebacker ratings. Although, Tom, I might just do that with each of these positions for you, just to get you to guess and to fill out the rest of the show.
Gust Zarns.
Where is Ohio State's running back room rated nationally?
It has to be top 5, I would say, probably. So let's say fourth.
They are ranked 8th.
Okay.
Behind Texas A&M, Georgia, Iowa State, Oklahoma, Texas, Alabama, and Notre Dame. Receivers might be easier for you.
1.
Correct. They are ranked ahead of such teams as all of them. Offensive line, Tom, might be an easier one for you as well.
Offensive line might very well be number 1 as well. They're in that conversation if they're not.
They are number 2 behind Oklahoma. They are not in the conversation.
Depends on how long you want to talk about it, I guess.
Defensive line?
Defensive line is probably another top 5. I'll say 3.
They're 4th, ahead of Alabama at 5, but behind Clemson, Georgia, and Oklahoma. We know the linebacker.
2 in a row. I've picked one spot too high. What a homer I am.
So, linebackers, you've already said number 30. Where do you think Michigan ranks in these linebackers? Oh, they only go to 59.
Ooh.
So I don't know that Michigan is in this. They are not. So we'll move on, Tom. Just say where do you think Michigan's linebackers would rank? 69th?
That would be nicer than I might expect, but I mean, I would put them top 5 in the state of Michigan if we're doing it that way.
Ooh, boy. Central, Eastern, Western, Michigan State, Michigan.
But you got to remember, you got Lake Superior State have a team. I can't remember. I don't remember if there's a D2 team there, but
true. We'll have to revisit that. That'll be a show in itself. Secondary, Tom, this could get ugly.
Secondary, I think I can't imagine they're much lower than 30th in anything. So I'll say 27th.
Ooh, close. 19th. Would you care to take a guess at Michigan? And I'll see if they are in here. I'll let you know that Ohio is the lowest ranked at 64. Lowest ranked listed.
Okay, 64. Michigan secondary, they're probably getting a bunch of bonus points for Daxton Hill, so I'll say 48th.
Close, 42nd. So that's a win for them.
I am shockingly good at this, I think is my takeaway.
Auburn, 47. So that's something. Special teams, Tom, I'll let you know that Alabama is number 1. Where do you think Ohio State is with a new kicker, a new punter, and a kick returner that likes to wave, and a returning snapper?
I think having a new kicker, new punter, they have to be in the mid 30s. I'll say 35.
50th.
You know what? I can't argue with that right now.
Yeah, I won't either. Even Eastern Michigan is 29th. I didn't know Eastern Michigan was better than Ohio State in anything, but now we know. So that's basically. I think I've gone through enough of this. I do enjoy the minutia of the magazines and talking about the magazines because it is a holiday for I think a lot of people, a lot of college football fans, and so I believe this will be out on at Barnes & Noble, the Phil Steele magazine at Barnes & Noble, probably a Tuesday-ish, maybe this weekend. What day is today? I don't even know. Wednesday. So, yeah, it could start showing up. It's getting shipped out to all of the early adopters, the people who ordered it early. So it should be maybe this weekend. It'll be getting to the bookshelves, and check it out there. List cover price of $19.95. Which the other thing is, it's not like the Athlon is cheap. That's like $12 now, and these things used to be like $7, $8, and then they go up like $1 a year. Pretty soon, I'm gonna have to go to hard copies, like the digital stuff. I can't. It's getting expensive.
I mean, this does not constitute tax advice, but if you have 1099 income as a college football writer, it seems like that's something you could write off as research materials. I'm just saying, consult your tax professional before filing, please.
Yep. And so, it's definitely worth it. I enjoy them. It's just something nice to have around. It's just part of the process of getting to the season. Like we get through spring ball and then there's nothing, and then the football magazines start showing up on the shelves, and you're like, okay, we're gonna have football. I was worried we weren't. It's like, you know what it's like? It's when you go.
It's like literally last year when we said those exact words and really meant it. Yes,
but it's like when you leave the house and your dog or your pets are so excited to see when you come back. It's like The dog's thinking like, I didn't know if you were going to come back, but then you did, and I'm so happy to see you. I thought you were gone forever, but it turns out you were just gone. I don't know, maybe 6 days. In reality, it's like you just went to the mailbox. And that's how dogs are. That's how people are. That's how I am, I guess, with the college football magazines, and I'll get it. And I just like to have it. I don't even. There are times like I'll go days without looking at something, and it's just like, but I have it. It's, I'm not saying it's like a Smeagol Gollum, my precious type of thing, but it kind of is.
But I'm not saying that. Yes, I like this. I like the analogy here where college football is pretending to throw the ball and you go chasing after it out in the yard. And it's like, wait a minute. And then Phil Steele shows you the ball like, oh, good. The ball's still okay. Good.
But it's so sad that you say that, because that has happened, because there have been years where I will go to Barnes & Noble, drive over to Polaris and go in and hoping there's something, the magazine is going to be there. And it's like, oh, not yet. Well, I'll be back tomorrow. You can throw fake that tennis ball, throw tomorrow. I'll be back. And then, and then finally on like day 4, you finally get the tennis ball and you're like, you're so happy.
Now I've got a picture of you mentally carrying the Phil Steele out of the store in your mouth,
tail wagging,
rolled up, tail wagging. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly how that happened, and you can't tell me otherwise.
No, and I won't even try. So I think that'll do it. Tom, you got anything else you want to add in before we get out of here?
No, just how much we appreciate everyone who's subscribing and listening to our nonsense every day. now that we've turned the Buckeye Weekly into essentially a daily podcast, we're pretty sure this will be the last one for the week, but you never know. Friday is another day, and this has been, as you were talking about the preseason magazines, like this is normally like the absolute dead time of the year where there's just nothing going on, and we're sitting and trying to figure out what are we going to talk about. This month has been crazy with news, lots of stuff to talk about, lots of stuff to look forward to. We're only 3 weeks and change away from Big Ten Media Days starting. Yeah, it is. This is normally the very, very quiet time of year, and this has been it has been pretty loud with news this year. So we appreciate you listening and participating when we ask for questions. We should do a listener question show at some point. We haven't done one of those in a while, but we appreciate your insight, your help, your ratings, your reviews, all of that stuff. It helps us grow the show. We are having a lot of fun doing it, and as long as you guys are enjoying it, keep listening. We will probably continue to do it from now until they don't have a college football season, and we're really sad.
And even then, we'll just have to talk about how they took it away from us. They faked throwing that tennis ball.
We've done that show as well in the last year.
Yes, we have. Too many, in my opinion. So that'll do it. A reminder to subscribe via YouTube if you're not yet subscribed. That way you'll get all kinds of dings and notices that the new video is posted, or that Kirk Barton is live at the airport with JT Tuamaloa, which is still one of the great things that I've gotten to see in the last couple of weeks, and just all kinds of stuff like that. Message board at Ask the Insiders message board at buckeyescoop.com is always flying, and there's tons of info there now, and on the front page, which the front page is generally totally free, so check that out as well. Thank you all for listening. And if this is the last show of the weekend or of the week, have a great weekend, and we will talk to you later.